Hi everyone, welcome to Random Talk with NG. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Ngozi Obiefuna and I am the host of Random Talk with NG. Today's conversation is one in which I had with someone, so we have a guest for today's episode, and stay tuned, listen, and I'm sure you would pick one or two from our shared experiences. On today's episode of Random Talk with NG, I have with me here a friend of mine, Yemisi, and today we'll be talking about rising above failure. So, hi Yemisi, welcome to Random Talk with NG.
Hi Marianne, happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Yemisi. And before we continue, I want to say thank you for all the support you've given me since I started my podcast, sharing it, your feedback, your comments. I am truly grateful and I'm happy that you could make time to join me here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Good. So let's talk about rising above failure. And I know that this topic is one that, hits deep. Both to myself and possibly to you, because there may be some significant failure that you may have experienced. So let me start by asking, can you share one significant failure you experienced and how it initially made you feel?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Marianne. And like you mentioned, the truth is, I want to believe there is no one, that has had it very smooth in life. At one point or the other, we have had to deal with setbacks, and I've had my own share, right? So I would say one key one, that I have experienced would be when I had to, rewrite some papers during my ICANN exams, and that period was quite tough. It had a hit on, will I say, my self-worth, because I noticed that it was almost like I was tying my value or my capacity to passing the exams. And it was just one experience that when I look back now and I begin to see the lessons that came out of that period. But I would say that is one key failure that I experienced and the kind of impact it had on my person. Yeah.
So, I think about what you just said, and I remember ACCA and the ACCA failure that I experienced. And it also made me feel like it's like you don't know anything. I began to doubt myself, because what do you mean by I can't pass this exam? How difficult could it have been? Over time, I realized, just like you did, that a lot had gone down. There was a whole lot to deal with externally while preparing for the exam that they contributed as, factors that are affected or factors that quickened the failure. But thankfully, we survived. So at that moment, during that ICANN, issues or the ICANN exam you had to rewrite, did you ever feel your failure defined who you were as a person?
Okay, so it's a different thing when you just assume that after all, this is something that I do as part of my work. It should be a no-brainer. I would write it, I would pass it, and then you are faced with having to write the exams, and like I said before, it made me feel like maybe I was not smart enough. It made me feel like, maybe what am I not doing right? Or maybe I'm just not, why am I not able to pass this exam if I am, in quotes, who I say I am, if I can do what I say, I can do. So it kind of made me question my capacity. It made me question, my value. Just having to, open the result and see that, I did not pass. I have to sit for this again. So that period kind of affected my self-worth as a person.
So I totally agree with you. For me, it was a season of self-doubt. It was a season of, well, you who used to put others through, but you could not put yourself through. So what was the turning point that helped you separate your identity from that failure?
So you know how, well, which is it's important that we have people around us that remind us that there is more to life than I can, and that was what served as a turning point for me, because so in this case it was my husband that was always, because I would go to him and cry and say I want to be done with this exam, and he'll be like, see, you will finish it, and then you will realize that there is actually life after this exam, right? And he also made me realize that, see, I am not a failure. Yes, I did not pass this exam, but I am not a failure. Why? Because I'm not failing in every other, aspect of my life, right? And because I looked at it from that angle, it made me realize that, okay, what can I do differently? Right? Because if I can produce results in these aspects of my life, then what do I mean? It just means that I need to do something differently to get the result that I want in this area. So just that, separating my identity from the exam was the turning point for me. It made me realize that, yes, this is just feedback that I need to do something differently. Yeah, so that was it for me.
Yes, and I really connect with this story that you had shared, maybe because we both wrote similar exams, but I remember whenever my results come out and I see that I did not pass a particular one, and maybe I get to speak with my dad, he will say, oh, what happened? And I'll say, I don't know what happened because I prepared for it, or I thought I prepared, yeah. And then my dad will go on to tell me that, listen, you wrote 4 papers and you passed 3, and it was just that one you did not pass. It does not mean that you do not know what you're doing, right? Just as you have mentioned, it's feedback. You wrote all others, even the more expensive ones, and you passed them in one sitting. Your scores were high, but just this particular one, you were getting 49. It seems that maybe you need to change tactics. So it for the next couple of minutes, I want us to discuss, understanding failure. So what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about failure?
So the misconception I would say a lot of people have would be that, failure is final. The case of, oh, I have failed, it's all over. What can be done? What can change? But the truth is that failure is just a part of the process. It is proof that you are doing something right. You've not gotten the desired result, but at least it shows that, yes, you are making an effort, right? So it is proof that, you are growing, you are stretching yourself, because if you might not even appreciate it as much if it comes easy for you, as compared to when, you try something new and you're faced with a setback. By the time you now achieve it, you appreciate it even more, and you're able to, better to be a better resource to people that also told that part, right? So that misconception that it is the end of the road is not it, right? We need to see it as part of a process, because of course life is a journey, and whatever it is, we are doing is also a journey. Be it your career, an exam, it's a journey. Yes, it will come to an end, which is the more reason why. So I can students have this thing about, not giving up. That as long as you don't give up, do you get, you will get to the end, you will qualify. That it is only people that stop writing, and the truth is people stop. Oh, at least I know people that started and just left it altogether. So the fact that as long as you don't see it as the end of the road, you will accomplish whatever it is you set out to.
Yeah. Yeah, because as Zig Ziglar once said, failure is an event, not a person. And yesterday ended last night. So, why do you think so many of us tie our self worth to our failures? And how can we begin to see failure as a stepping stone rather than a dead end?
The same way you feel proud when you accomplish something, when you are successful at something, it's the same way that sense of what will also be hit when you don't accomplish, what you set out to, right? But when you detach that accomplishment from how you see yourself, when you realize that, okay, I tried something, it did not work, it's different from I am a failure, I can't do anything, right? So we need to separate ourselves from, in quote, our results, right? Because except you want to stop trying completely, right? So we need to separate our identity from the kind of results we are accomplishing per time, and that's what I believe, that's what would help to make sure that we are not being continuously hit by whether or not we achieve whatever it is we set out to accomplish.
Yeah, that's true. I think really separating ourselves from our results is something that would help us. Made me remember one quote I once saw by Thomas Edison, which was, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." I think the mindset shift is something that would help us to help us move from that feeling of inadequacy whenever we fail to seeing that, okay, since I've tried it this way, I should possibly try some other way. Now, talking about bouncing back, because congratulations in arrears, you're a chartered accountant now, so definitely means that you bounced back from whatever setback or failure that had happened with regards to that exam. I know that it's never easy. So when you were at your lowest, what practical steps helped you rise again?
Okay, so of course, definitely you need support, right? Because I had people around me who were consistently reminding me that, see, you've got this, right? And we shouldn't alienate ourselves. I remember some diets where I didn't want people to know I was writing the exam, right? Because I was rewriting the paper, so I didn't connect with anyone that was writing. I almost, like, I didn't want, so that in case I don't pass, do you get, like, I wouldn't need to start explaining to too many people, or nobody will be coming to asking me that, how far did you pass? So, and in retrospect, I realized that I was shooting myself in the foot. So how did I bounce back? There was the diet that things actually turned around. It was clear that, this is different. And I remember that day, I was on an ICANN group, and one particular guy had shared SFM materials. And I just reached out to him. I was like, that, please, I need you to be my accountability partner. I am rewriting these papers, this on that one. Please, I see that, you've kind of like gone far in terms of your preparation. That, do you mind if, we can be checking in together to see how far we've gone, this one. And the guy was, very good, was always checking up. So they said that he was even, I think there were like three others of us like that he was also actively tutoring, right? He would come to Unilag then to take us certain topics in SFM. Do you get? And so I now started actively, being I now started, being active in ICANN groups, because I now saw that, okay, you see this, you're doing it in silos, it's not going to help, right? So just that coming out of your shadows, to say, rather than hiding and thinking I'm going through this thing, let me go through it alone. But just putting myself out there, getting the necessary support, he was the one that will now be like, okay, focus on these topics for this particular, for this paper, these are the core topics. Just make sure that you understand it very well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Do you get? So that particular aspect was a real game changer. And then another thing is, there was this, I paid for one online course as well, and the tutor there, any little thing, you'll be like, this is very easy, this is very easy. You just need to, and it changed my mindset that, okay, so I just need to pay attention and I will get this thing. Do you get? So that also helped me that, okay, I just need to pay attention to this thing, I will get it. Just because he was teaching, and any little thing will be like, this is very easy, this is very easy. So just changing, how will I put it, if you need to change. So for instance, some people are fine with sitting in class from morning to evening. Looking back, I realized that maybe it was not really my style, right? So you need to understand what works best for you, right? If it is reading with people, fine. If it is reading on your own, fine. Just make sure that whatever you are doing is working, right? Another thing is, I noticed that if I need to rewrite a paper, I will get a new notebook. I'll be like, okay, maybe because I did not read the study pack from cover to cover the last time, that's why I did not pass. So this time I'm going to, make sure that I cover every topic, and then I will not start chapter 1, chapter 2. Maybe it's in chapter 3 that I will stop and leave that book. And before I know it, I'll start doing how will I put it, firefighter, trying to cover up everything when it's already very close to the exam. But this time I was more strategic, practicing as I'm reading the topic like this, read the summary. As long as I know that, okay, yes, I understand the concept, I'll start practicing questions. And I realized that going into the exam hall, I was confident. Unlike before that, I would be so scared. I hope I don't forget this one. I hope I've not missed this one. So just that, first of all, getting all the help that you need from, connecting to the right support, changing your mindset. There are some people that just believe that ICANN is hard. But that exposure to, that tutor that was always saying it is easy, just made me realize that, okay, I just need to pay attention. I will get this thing. So that mindset shift is also very, very, it is a game changer. It would help, right? So, and thank you, we got to the end of the tunnel, and oh God, I'm chatting. You get, and like, now looking back, I realized that truly there is life outside. There's life beyond, this exam that was in a way taking up my whole life at the time. Yeah.
That's actually very true. While you spoke about how you were able to overcome that particular paper, it made me also remember, what I did to overcome that particular, or those two papers that were stressing and threatening, my mental health at the time. Change strategy. Sometimes you realize that changing the strategy, doing a 360 or a 180, I don't know which of the degrees is correct, but sometimes you realize that changing the strategy entirely may not be the best. And then you just have to find a mix of both strategies such that it works out well. Other times you realize that, okay, you just need to devote more time and attention. Other times, familiarity. I know this thing. It should not be. I mean, I also bought new notebooks. With every diet, I bought new notebooks. But after a while, I discovered that, okay, you can read some with people because what they understand. There are some topics they fully understand. There are some topics you fully understand, and then come together, discuss, and then try questions. If you need to change strategy, change it early on, and don't be thinking that it is hard. Truly, that mindset thing is very important, because most times we're saying it's hard. The person, when people say they look at the pass rate, I say, I don't need to check pass rate too, because it will be very discouraging. You're seeing pass rate is 27%, pass rate is 30 something percent. No, it's going to be highly discouraging. Which was even funny, because it was funny to me because the exam I was writing, the pass rate was over 50%, the one I was writing. But for the ones that I was passing at a go, the pass rate 20 something percent, 30%. Oh my goodness. But yeah, thankfully we were able to deal with it. And so what about the inner voice, the shame, the fear, the you'll never recover whispers? How do you actually silence that?
So at some point in time, I heard something about how you cannot challenge a thought with a thought. So when I hear in my head that maybe you're not good enough, I'm not doing, I open my mouth and I'm like, you see this exam, I am going to pass. You see this ACA, I am going to get it. Right? So just when that negative thought or just thought of feeling incapable or feeling not enough, I challenge it with my voice. If I have to go to the mirror, I remember funny enough, one retreat that we had in the office. I went into the restroom because, and then the thoughts just said, I went to the mirror and I did a complete like pep talk, telling myself that, see, let me see, this exam you will pass, this ACA you will get it, you will be qualified, because and it wiped away all the negative thoughts that was going around in my head. So I want to believe that to deal with any voice of shame or fear that wants to come and toy with your identity, just open your mouth and talk. Remind yourself that you are not a failure. Don't try to fight a thought with another thought. Don't try to fight a negative thought with a positive thought. Open your mouth and talk. Let the sound of your own voice drown that negative thought that is coming in your head, and before you know it, you will believe yourself and you will produce the desired result that you want.
And while we're on that, while we're still talking about resilience, and overcoming, I imagine people's opinions could also make it harder. So, did you ever experience that? And how did you rise above what others thought?
I would say that was the biggest thing that was even troubling me, because it was more people. Well, if people were talking, I didn't know. Do you get? But that fear or that worry of what will people think? What will people say? Why is she not yet chattered? The truth is, maybe they are not even thinking. They have their own lives to think about. They have their own. So I think just realizing that, see, this is my life, this is my journey, and I'm not going to let what people think. Because, okay, if I'm worried about what they would think, will I now say because of that I'm going to stop writing the exams? Right? I cannot necessarily change how they think. So why don't I just channel that energy to, what I'm trying to achieve and just get it rather than worrying? So I would say that was what helped me, because initially I was worried, though I would not even lie. I was concerned. What is it? How will this person feel? What is this person saying? What are they saying? But just realizing that, see, everybody's running an individual race. This is my journey and I'm going to get to the end of it. That just helped me to manage that, worry that I had at the time.
And most times we are always thinking that someone is talking somewhere, someone is doing this somewhere, but everybody's just running their race, right? Life is personal. Life is a personal race. Everyone is just running their race. I think it's just our perception of ourselves that makes us think that, people are talking, people are whispering that, why can't you pass this particular exam? And I know that there's this saying that when life knocks you down, try to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. Now, something I've noticed also is that failure doesn't just break us. Sometimes it builds us in ways we never imagined. So, looking back, was there a failure in your life that became a hidden blessing?
Looking back, I would say that my ICANN journey made me more, first of all, it made me resilient, right? because there was a season where when it was like, is this thing going to end? And now I'm on the other side. It is over. So when I'm faced with something that looks like, it is challenging, it is big, I just reminded myself that, see, this is a challenge, but you will overcome it. I feel like that period has made me very resilient, has made me realize that I can achieve it as long as I put my head down. I will get it done. So it has built resilience. Another thing it has done is it has made me empathetic. Like, I'm able to relate. So for instance, this last diet, I had someone that had that had reached out crying, and I could relate and I could speak to her from a place of experience, to help her understand that, see, you failed, but you are not a failure. Or better still, rather than saying you failed, you did not pass this exam, but it doesn't change the fact that you are who you are. You are not a failure. Don't let this have any impact on your person. So just being able to provide that support, just being able to provide that guidance from a place of someone that can relate, in retrospect, it's a blessing. Now, because now if I even meet someone that is preparing for the exams, I'm able to emphasize to them that, see, don't just focus on trying to read the pack from cover to cover. Make sure that you are practicing, because you're not just going to go this, you are going to go into the exam hall to write. And you cannot, so for instance, for something like case study, the exam, or the day of the exam for case study cannot be the first time you intend to write a report from start to finish. Just being able to provide that support, being able to provide guidance is something that, will I say, going through my ICANN journey has also helped me to develop. So yes, resilience, empathy, and just being able to be a support to others that are on the journey, because of the kind of experience I went through on it as well.
And that's, I totally agree. And why I say I agree is because sometimes when people say it's just an exam, you should be able to pass this exam, it's just a CCA, I'm thinking to myself, you people do not know what failure does to people's mental health. You people do not know how it sets us back in various ways. If you're not able to provide support, either through making sure that the person's mental health is intact, or being empathetic towards what they feel, because sometimes people make it look like, you cannot pass the exam because you're lazy or something, but they don't understand. As people will say, oh no, go, no, right? They don't understand that it takes a lot, and once you failed, it already starts to affect your mindset. But people tend to forget that. So yes, it makes sense that you're empathetic. It makes sense that you provide support as much as you can to people, and it's good and it's very powerful. Now, on a practical level, what daily practices or habits help you stay grounded so that failure doesn't crush your identity again?
Okay, so for me, that would be maintaining a sense of gratitude, right? So there is always a tendency to wallow into worry or comparison, and not realizing that you've actually come a long way, right? So what I do from time to time is just to just pause and appreciate how far I have come, right? To just look back and realize that God has been good to me, right? I might have some challenges, I might, be going through some things that I'm like, okay, but it doesn't change the fact that, I have come a long way. So that's whenever I catch myself trying to, go into worry, or I just, intentionally start to count my blessings, start to say, okay, yes, in this, God has been good to me. So that sense of gratitude is what, something that has really helped me. Another thing is, just Another thing is the words of affirmation. So if at any point I, start having maybe like negative thoughts, or thoughts that are not in alignment with, you know, what I believe of myself, I open my mouth and I counter it, right? So just those words of affirmations, gratitude, those are two practical things that I do regularly that helps me to, to remain grounded in my identity.
Yes, so your comment was beautiful, and I want us to close by turning this into encouragement for someone listening right now who feels like a failure. What would you say to them?
First of all, failure is not your identity. It's an event. It is something that has happened. It is not who you are. Right. I saw a quote recently that, kind of got to me. It said, mistakes are not the end. They are lessons written in bold. And these mistakes will lose their power when you turn them into lessons. So at any point in time, if you are faced with a challenge or you fail at something, realize that it is not your person, it is not your identity, it is not who you are. It is something that has happened. And as long as you do not give it the power to affect your identity, then it loses its power. It becomes a lesson that you can easily turn around. Yeah. So those are my parting words.
That's very true. As long as we don't let it affect our identity. If failure is inevitable, because it is, how can we embrace it without letting it define us?
I would say see it as a teacher. Right. See it as a teacher, not a label. So instead of asking, why me? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What is this event teaching me? What do I need to do differently? Right? And I'm sure that, once you change, once you have that shift, see it as a teacher, not as a label. It is something that has happened. It is not who you are. Right? And with that, you can embrace it without letting it define who you are.
Okay. Makes sense. And finally, can you leave us with a mantra, a quote, or even a simple reminder you lean on when things don't go as planned?
So it is a memory verse. I taught my daughter, and I realized that I started saying it to myself in the voice in which I taught her, and it is, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So yes, that's how I thought she was able to follow. But I realized that even when I am faced with a challenge, I actually say it back to myself in that voice that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And because I know that I'm not going to do it in my own power, and of course, God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think, because I know that I am not powered by my own strength. It helps me to understand that, okay, you see this challenge, I'm going to overcome you. So with that.
And to add with that, as Nelson Mandela once said, do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. So, Yemisi, thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom with us today. And I think one big takeaway is this, that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it, but it never defines our identity. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Truly appreciate.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I absolutely enjoyed having this conversation with you. Thank you.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode of Random Talk with NG. I know it was not your usual duration or length of Random Talk with NG, which you're used to, but I'm really hoping that you've learned a couple of things about rising above failure. And I just want to say a big thank you to Yemisi Oluwole for taking our time out of her busy schedule to actually have this conversation. It meant a lot to me, as Yemisi is someone who has always supported and listened to my podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes on Random Talk with NG to share with someone who you feel or who you believe needs to listen to this.